Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. With his health failing, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. Within hours of his arrival, he was embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of Lomidze organized crime family known as Leo. Convinced by a longtime friend, Frankie, to flee from his commitments to the Lomidze family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Now wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depends on the kindness of strangers. What do you do when the only way to save those you love is through the use of proxies? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Proxy by Colbytrax. 25. I woke with a splitting headache. A spear of sunlight fell upon my table, highlighting my breakfast. I struggled out of bed, performed my morning ablutions in the filthy bathroom just down the hall, wedged between two multi-story tanks as an afterthought. The room had the minimum one needed to keep passable. There was a small fresher set into the wall above the toilet, just enough room to sit beneath it. If I stood up too quickly, I could, and did on more than one occasion, knock my head on the edge of the contraption. The unit was old, ill-repaired, and sounded like a cement mixer filled with scrap iron when in operation. The floor was a filthy coating of mold, slime from boots, and a skin of dirt found only in the sleaziest after-hours bars. The mirror above the rough sink wasn't much better, pitted and cracked from years of cleaning with caustic chemicals. I examined myself in the mirror. Sunken eyes, gaunt features. The bones on my neck were visible in a way I never remembered them being. Just looking at myself, I could see I had lost at least 50 pounds in the weeks I'd been hiding in the Amazov catfish farm. It's not that they didn't feed me, it's just that there was always too much food. Though now that I saw myself, really saw myself instead of avoiding the reflection as I did every day, I knew something was wrong with me. Perhaps the servings weren't too big. Maybe my appetite was gone. Was the problem in my head now affecting my whole body? Even through a 3-week growth of beard, I knew it was true. I knew with the surety of a condemned man that I was going to die. And if I were going to die, I wouldn't die with this beard on. It made me look like my father. I fumbled with the latch on a small metal box on the tank of the toilet. Inside were the basics of personal hygiene. I dug through it and found a packet of razors and a can of shaving cream. The shaving took a long time and 3 razors, but when it was done, I was fresh-faced. My father's face was banished once again. I stripped down to my shoes. No way I was going to take them off on that floor. I caught a glimpse of my side in the mirror as I turned toward the fresher. New pink skin the same size and shape as my Pemapo null stared back at me. The new skin hadn't had a chance to grow more than a thin fuzz of hair, and that hair didn't appear to match the rest of my stomach fur. It was the wrong color, for one, and coming in much thicker than the hair surrounding it. Something told me I'd be carrying that reminder of the day Frankie died for the rest of my life. All I could think about in that moment was the look on Leo's face as he mocked us from his perch above Frankie and me. I started to shake. It took all my willpower to stop rubbing at the alien flesh on my side. I shook the vision of Frankie's death from my mind and stepped into the sonic cleaner, which formed the 4th wall of the closet bathroom. The sonic cleaner was barely wide enough for me to reach my shoes, which I carefully dropped just outside the cleaner. The sonic cleaner operated by vibrating the filth off you. Units such as these were routine in the city housing projects, where City Center wanted to minimize water consumption. You stood in the chamber for a minute while waves of sonic force battered your body, loosening the molecules of filth. When it finished, A high-powered fan blew the now loose dirt toward a series of vents along 3 of the 4 walls of the sonic cleaner. It was a variation on the fresher units found in every home, but I still didn't like it. For one, it always made my teeth feel weird. You're supposed to keep your mouth and eyes shut during the procedure, which I did, but for some reason it always felt as if my fillings were trying to shake loose. The second reason was the implants. Even though Fatima explained that the waves of the sonic cleaner were sound and not electromagnetic, and the frequencies were designed not to penetrate the skin, I still found the sonic cleaner to be a device I only faced when I could smell myself. I slid the door shut on the cleaner, propped myself against the back wall of the unit, and turned it on. A calming, synthesized voice counted down the time remaining, first in 10-second intervals, followed by 1-second intervals when the time fell below 10 seconds. The voice reassured me that this too would pass. It was the longest minute of my life. Eyes and mouth closed, my mind drew increasingly frantic images. I felt my hand shake, a metallic taste in my mouth, a tingling in my toes. I felt the start of a headache, which faded as quickly as it came as the cleaner started its blowers. A whirlwind of grit surrounded me as I pulled myself away from the wall, trying hard not to breathe while the fans blasted the loosened dirt from my emaciated form. If you ever find yourself in a sonic cleaner, it is very important not to inhale while the fans are on. Inhaling discarded body scum is not something I ever want to experience again. The fan shut down. The suction continued another few seconds, and once again, I was in the quiet. The quiet, an endless drone of pumps, fans, and pipes, was disturbing to most city dwellers. We, as a species, don't like the quiet. But I was starting to find solace in the slow respiration of the city. The sound that keeps you alive and is so constant you stop hearing it. I stepped from the cleaner into my shoes and pulled my spare clothes from the fresher. Careful to keep them from touching the filthy floor, I dressed quickly, though clumsily. My balance was off strangely. It wasn't enough to knock me over, but enough to make the gyrations of dressing dangerous. Dressed, I threw my dirty clothes in the fresher and made my way back to my room. The dagger of sunlight had moved off the table and onto the floor. I sipped the cold tea and coffee, drank the warm juice and nibbled at the omelet and rice on my plate. Full, I inventoried what remained of my breakfast. Something most definitely was wrong with my appetite. I had eaten barely 4 bites of the omelet, hadn't touched the toast or fruit, and I felt stuffed. Time was running out. If I were to save Nona, it had to be today. There would be no second chances. Firmware, Proxy, is the second book in the Firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins moments after Firmware Hijacked ends. So if you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked, this would be a good time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 20 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware Hijacked and Proxy are both available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware Hijacked and Proxy is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the button will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Proxy is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it, just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of two minds about the whole thing anyway. If you want to get social with me, I do mostly Twitter. So if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. Spelled the same as above, Colbytrax. We could sing that all night long. Thank you once again and have a wonderful week.